The title of my presentation is The Key Role of Interdisciplinary Communication in Cybersecurity. And, well, to be more precise, this presentation, even if a lot of concepts that I will present can apply to all cybersecurity in general. My interest is mainly in the cybersecurity of critical infrastructures. And as presented in this slide, this is one of the Third Millennium challenges. When I talk about critical infrastructure, I'm talking about this kind of things: secure communication, secure control of borders, electricity, water, gas, plant protection, transport protection, and territory protection, which are the main facilities that we use every day. And these facilities, as we can see during this presentation, are continuously open to possible cyber attacks. Well, when speaking about a common interdisciplinary approach, why this? Because just to remind about the point that we, in the last 70 years, we entered in a new age, the information age, which includes a lot of technological and social aspects. This information age has transformed our society from an industrial-based society into a knowledge-based society, from mechanics mainly to electronics. And in this age, the most important point in the human endeavor is knowledge. And knowledge represents not only one aspect, but many aspects of the human life. To enter in a discussion about cybersecurity, we have to understand the characteristic of the cyberspace. First of all, the cyberspace is the set of all networks, computers, all endpoints that we usually every day use by using computers, by using transports and whatever. And the knowledge is the most important element of the cyberspace. So the structure of the cyberspace has a strong influence on the cybersecurity. So what are the aspects of the cyberspace that we have to consider when approaching a new kind of strategy for cybersecurity? First of all, there is a rapid change in tools that we use on the cyberspace, including also defense tools. We are every time immersed in a world where new strategies, new programs, new software is developed to combat cybercrime. The problem is that it's quite difficult in the cyberspace to understand which is the source and which are the originating points of the cyber attacks. The other point is that sometimes it's very difficult to distinguish between a cyber attack and a malfunction of the system because of the complexity of the system itself. The third point is that due to the fact that the software that we use every time, not only as private users, but also as government users or infrastructures users, it's made of the so-called COTS, the commercial off-the-shelf components. And the use of the COTS components makes the cyberspace more open to the cyber attacks, because everyone knows how these components are made. There is a third point. There is a relative low cost to prepare cyber attacks. It's relative low cost. It's not zero cost. Because as we can see in this discussion, very often cyber attacks are the result of a cooperative effort. Very, very often there is one person alone who prepares cyber attacks. So it means some money needs, but not too much. The final point is that in every nation and all over the world, there is not a clear legal environment to punish cybercrime. So this encourages in some way the perpetrators of cybercrime. Anyway, regarding the critical infrastructures, the problem is that apart from stopping the work of computers that may happen in the private life of every citizen, the attack against critical infrastructure can stop the activities of very important activities in the middle of a nation or also at the international level. So the consequence of a cyber attack to critical infrastructure can be disastrous. We can see some examples later. And so the need to find a solution for solving the problem, to find a new solution which is in some way different from the solution which have been devised up to now, is very important. And this is the proposal of a new approach to the cybersecurity. And this idea is based on the fact that social networking, so Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on, are the new communication trend that has been installed on the cyberspace. Everyone uses this kind of tools. And of course, the normal use of these tools are to exchange ideas, to form groups of interest, cultural, maybe, or any type of groups. But the same tools can be used and are already used to understand and to classify people who are using them. I say that this use is already in course because, for example, many advertisement companies use the data from this social networking to send advices about, for example, buying cars or buying books or whatever. The mechanism that is at the base of this kind of use of the social networking is by using the so-called metadata. The metadata are special information which are extracted from the basic data, the messages that we exchange on the social networks. And in this case, this metadata can be used to discover potential cybercrime aspects. There are some technologies which are involved in this kind of process. And I will present very briefly. As you can see, these technologies, big data, intelligence, deep learning, data fusion, and human in the loop, are a mixture of technologies which are extracted partly by electronics engineering and partly by social sciences. I will not go too much in detail about this description because most of you already know. Big data is the information assets which are characterized by high volume of data, and these data are apparently very difficult to examine because the amount of information contained inside is very huge. But as you can experience every day, some algorithm has been devised to work this data. They are basically based on the MapReduce algorithms that are used by Google. And the concept is that these data go into two main streams. The stream of mapping, that is the matching of your search with some particular characteristic of the data, and the reduce stream, which is the process of highly reducing the parallel load, the processing load, by distributing the load into a high number of parallel nodes. Intelligence is a set of processes which gave the possibility of understanding and interpreting the knowledge relative to the adversary element, which can be a single person or an organization. This is a typical human activity, but in some cases it can only be part of machine activity. For example, I'm referring to artificial intelligence tools. So this is a mixture of social and engineering technique. Deep learning is something that is connected to intelligence, but is completely related to the machine learning, and is a new way of considering machine learning by using a structure in the network which is very much inspired to a biological model of the human brain. So it's, just to be clear, is a special evolution of the well-known neural networks. Data fusion. Data fusion is the process of merging different data of different sources and different kind of, for example, sensors or also intelligence data in order to create some new information which is of practical use. So data fusion is, of course, a very wide subject because it contains a lot of different techniques. And finally, human in the loop. This comes from application related, for example, to defense. When we have in a completely or partially automated process, when we have a critical point where the machine decision cannot be used because of criticality of the decision to be taken, the human has to interact in real time in order to facilitate the work of the machine. Okay, how can we put all these technologies together? This is a recent proposal that has been made in the frame of European Union. The name of this project is called TerraFusion. The TerraFusion means is an acronym which means technology for real-time adaptive fusion of information and data. And this technology, as you can see, is a mixture of all the technologies that I presented before, with the goal to create an environment where some data which are coming from intelligence or long-term data which are stored inside the system, together with real-time data coming from sensors, you can see that on the left side of the slide, can converge together and produce some results in real time. The meaning of the triangle is that we are using, in this case, a MapReduce algorithm as well, as I presented at the beginning, in order to transform the non-real-time data into real-time data and to obtain some real-time response of the system. Well, now, just to go more inside the interdisciplinary concept, we have had a discussion about the technology that we use to produce this approach. But the technology is not sufficient because as the main subject for this approach are the social media, we have to discover some data which are hidden in the social media. So, how can we use interdisciplinary communication? First of all, we have said at the beginning that the social media are used by hackers to produce cybercrime. We have a lot of examples where the hackers used social media just for this. We have to use the same media to combat hackers. Okay, there are other considerations that very often the cooperative effort which is performed on the social media can, in some cases, be also the result of some socio-political interest. And this has been the result of the examination of real cases. So, to combat cybercrime, we have to merge all these different aspects. The problem is, how are we prepared for this new approach? And there are some considerations which tend to, for the answer yes. For example, people and organizations tend to be more interactive in general. This kind of subject is under discussion, so it's not the first time that this proposal is made. There are other examples in the literature. The first point is that even if these ideas, in particular this one where the concept is to propose something that is different from what has been proposed until now, the native digital generation, the young people, are more willing to accept new ideas. And there are, at the same time, some reasons for answering no. For example, one drawback is that this new approach requires involvement of very smart professionals. This is a concept that has been already discussed this morning. We need the very smart people to do that, because in general, professionals, in particular, I can see engineers, but also not only engineers, tend to work in separate areas, not to cooperate with other people working in different areas. And also, the last point is that the same users, and this is also a product of experience, the same users which have to fund this kind of new ideas and at the end to buy systems are generally skeptical about this kind of new ideas. So there are reasons for yes and reasons for no. In any case, just to talk about the benefits of this new approach. The first point is that this approach makes us able to prevent illegal activities before they become effective. This is quite important, because you know that the money which is caused by cybercrime, we spend a lot of money to recover from cybercrime. The goal of this approach is to prevent cybercrime. So we could save all this money. Of course, when applying this approach, we cannot predict cybercrime with 100% level of confidence. And so on. There are other points that can be considered in analyzing pros and cons of this approach. There is another consideration that very often the practical application of this approach may limit the personal privacy, if not safely applied. So, a consequence of this is that the organization which are in charge of the tools must behave correctly in order not to violate privacy. So we have pros and cons. We can prevent cybercrime. We can apply a multidisciplinary approach. We can exploit solid defense tools. But at the same time, we have the risk of privacy violation. And we have to apply new technologies which are not simple. They are quite complicated. Okay, I don't go into the case studies. I go direct to the conclusions. Critical infrastructure are strongly exposed to cybercrime. Therefore, it is necessary to study new approaches based on multifaceted, multidisciplinary techniques. The approach has to be based on new technologies and human factors. Given the very critical aspects of the human life covered by this topic, everything must be applied with special care in order to get the maximum advantage and minimize negative side effects. That's it.